By the early 1980s, the political landscape began to shift, creating an opening for rapprochement. The death of Jomo Kenyatta in 1978 and the rise of Daniel Arap Moi marked a critical turning point. The deep personal animosity between the two nations had been largely defined by the ideological clash between Nyerere and Kenyatta. From Nyerere's socialist perspective, Kenyatta's Kenya was not just capitalist, but was dominated by a Kikuyu hegemony or ethnic sovereignty that functioned as a form of internal colonialism, complete with political patronage and repression. Kenyatta had marginalized his own political party, KANU, and suppressed opposition figures like Oginga Odinga, whom Nyerere considered an ally. In stark contrast, Moi's initial actions upon taking power would have been viewed favorably by Nyerere, significantly easing personal animosities. President Moi made populist gestures of social equity, such as introducing free milk in schools, and began to redistribute resources away from the entrenched Kikuyu interests that had defined the Kenyatta era. For Nyerere, this challenge to the old ethnically biased capitalistic structure was a welcome change. This new dynamic was solidified by power shifts inside Kenya. Powerful officials from the Kenyatta era who were hostile to Tanzania, most notably the staunchly anti-social Attorney General Chance Jonjo, were progressively removed from power by Moi in the early 1980s. These changes in leadership and policy in Kenya created the first genuine opportunity for dialogue in years. While a new political willingness was emerging, a harsh economic reality made reconciliation not just possible, but necessary. The 1978 to 1979 war to oust Idi Amin, while a military victory, was financially devastating to Tanzania. The war is estimated to have cost upwards of $500 million, severely straining its already struggling socialist economy and draining its foreign exchange reserves. On top of this, the border closure that had been in effect since 1977 was economically damaging to both nations. Kenya lost an estimated $100 million a year in trade, while the loss to its poorer partner Tanzania was $20 million annually. For Tanzania, the combined weight of the war debt and the lost trade made the continued closure unsustainable. This severe economic distress forced both nations to turn to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank for support. These institutions conditioned their financial aid on structural adjustment programs, pressuring both governments to adopt free market principles like privatization, deregulation, and cuts in public spending. The World Bank also played a direct role in mediating the dispute over the old EAC's assets, appointing a mediator, Victor Umbrich, to oversee the negotiations. This process culminated in a final agreement on the division of assets in May 14, 1984. For Tanzania, the need to present a more pragmatic image to international donors to secure resources was a key motivation to normalize relations, directly leading to the reopening of the border in November 17, 1983, shortly after the initial breakthrough in the assets negotiations. After the border opened, economic relations between Kenya and Tanzania improved slowly and steadily. Initially, President Moi concentrated more on peace diplomacy than on economic integration. However, this changed as Kenya itself came under increasing pressure. When the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF and World Bank, starved President Moi of resources and donor funding, he turned his focus back to regional integration as a solution. His goal was to create a common market that would mitigate the frustrations of the World Bank and IMF's economic sanctions and provide Kenya renewed access to regional markets. To achieve this, he personally initiated talks with Tanzania's President Ali Hassan Mwinyi and Uganda's President Milton Obote, who had returned to power. This push for integration coincided with the end of the Cold War and the rise of the Washington Consensus that favored free market policies. Both countries were already on a path of forced economic convergence due to the IMF's structural adjustment programs, which for Tanzania meant dismantling its socialist system through the 19 1986 Economic Recovery Program. With the old ideological battles now moot and both countries facing shared external pressure, the primary barrier to integration was gone. This process culminated in the formal re-establishment of the East African Community in 1999.